All right, good afternoon, ladies and gents. And welcome back to the podcast, The Weekly Pill. This is episode 5. I'm very excited about, as I was. This is episode 6.
Awesome.
I'm very excited about my guest today. It's an individual that I haven't met, but it's amazing how social media can connect you with certain people. And I'm honored to have this guest on here today. He is a retired Green Beret officer. He served at West Point. He was a student at West Point, and he played on their football team. He split his time there with a mission for the LDS Church in Russia, came back, finished his schooling at West Point, and commissioned to the U.S. Army. And his path from there, multiple deployments in Iraq, went to Africa, went to other different countries supporting the advisor mission, which the Green Berets do. Mr. Jason Van Camp is our guest today. He's also,
right.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, thanks for having me on, man. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thank you. And he's also got an amazing company that he has taken like-minded individuals to create a world-class training curriculum, virtual and in person, for his clients. And it's called Mission 60. And he's also got a book. I'll show you my copy.
Okay. It is.
Incredible book. What I like about it is it puts pieces together for you to read throughout, and it brings so many different characters in the book. You got professional athletes, you got special operations guys, you got Marines. He didn't forget about Marines. He's got.
I didn't forget, man. I got some Marines in there for sure.
Right. And you got some incredible human behaviorists in there as well, and with some PhDs and doctorates. And he's also got an interesting nonprofit that, I do a lot of volunteer work, and I never started my own nonprofit because I love supporting nonprofits, and I don't ever want to have to pick to choose just one to support, which would be my own. But his nonprofit is called Warrior Rising, and he's the executive director and the founding chairman. And what I love about his nonprofit is that they put the pressure on the individual that wants to support and wants to help, and says, look, we will help you as far as you help yourself. And I love what they're doing. So I'd love to get into that a little bit, Jason. But other than that, we'll start with the Weekly Pill theme and just say, what helped you find your passion and purpose in life, Jason?
That's great. Great question. And when I first heard that question, my guys were asking me, what did you do to find your purpose again after you left the military? And nobody had ever asked me that question before. And I thought to myself, gosh, I guess my purpose now is creating. It's creating opportunities through my company, Mission 60. It's providing value to a client. It's the opportunity to hire people to my team, former, military guys, injured guys, amazing guys that need to be back on a team, and they could add value through their stories, so that the client can hear powerful experiences to make themselves better. And it's also cathartic for them to get this out of their system, to make money for them, for my company, for myself and family. That's my purpose. And I think, the way that I look at it right now is, the purpose of life is to find your gift. Like, what are you good at? What's your gift? That's the purpose of life. And then the meaning of life, I think, is to give that gift away to other people. That's how I look at it now.
That's powerful. That's special. And that's easy to say that, but just seeing how you are and learning more about you, you're living that, you're walking it.
I try. I look at it like this. When I was younger, a little bit more immature, I'm still immature. Don't get me wrong, man. I'm still a guy, still a dude, man. Trying to be a good dude always. But I thought to myself, life is about trophies. It's about accolades. It's about building your resume. It's about collecting stories. And as I went through life with that mindset, I realized that was a pretty selfish way of looking at things. And I realized pretty quickly in the military that life isn't about trophies. It's about people. And it's about the journey that you take with those people. It's about helping them succeed. Because if you help your team succeed, they're going to help you succeed. And that's it's almost counterintuitive to think about it like that, putting someone else's needs above your own, because we're not wired to do that. But once we take that, uncomfortable step, that leap of faith, and do that, put the mission first, then the team, then the teammate, then your teammates, and then finally at the bottom yourself, shit happens for you, man. It
Sure.
really does. I can attest to that.
Yeah, I agree with that. One thing I will add is I've been in a lot of different jobs, as a combat skills instructor after the Marine Corps as a civilian, and different jobs where I literally I put myself on the back burner to try to serve and be there for everybody else. And I hit some walls sometimes and realized, man, I gotta shift my direction because I'm getting worn out because I got to influence my team the best. I got to first show up for myself. So you got to be your best self, or if you don't, you're going to pull away from your team's development and growth.
Oh
So,
yeah.
so I will say though, you're showing up for yourself first, but you're doing it before you're with the team, if that makes sense. They're not seeing you do that. So when you're with the team, it's all about them, and they didn't realize that 2 hours you put in earlier for yourself. So I can tell you're definitely showing up for yourself as well to develop that team.
Well said. Well said. If you're not taking care of yourself, not getting the things done that you need to get done personally, you can't be an asset for anybody else.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, you're pulling.
sort of like foundational leadership skills, right time, right place, right uniform, and taking care of yourself first is part of that kind of that foundational basic leadership level.
Yeah, for sure. So I want to go to your book real quick, and
Cool.
this is chapter 1,
Yeah.
and we're talking about where is he at? Major Pettit.
Yeah.
Okay, so you and Major Pettit had a conversation about it had to do with you kind of figuring out like what you're doing and why you're here,
Yeah.
and figuring out those follow on footsteps of where you're going to go and grow. So I'm just going to paraphrase this in the middle of this sentence here. So when you don't have to be thinking about anything else, is physics what you're thinking about? Do you remember that analogy he brought up to you and what you wrote in the book?
Yeah. I love that analogy, and, and, what it really explains is when you have nothing to think about, what do you think about? Because that's who you are, and the son, it's a story about a son and a father, and the son was trying to follow in his father's footsteps and learn about physics. And he went back to his father and he said, like, I'm not, got some problems. I don't really quite understand. And the dad said, we've been over this several times. You're not picking this up. And the father asked the son, like when you're walking down the street by yourself, when you're taking a shower, when you're doing things that you don't have to think, isn't physics what you're thinking about? And the son was honest with himself and he said no. And the dad said, well, then you shouldn't be a physicist. Do something else. Find out what it is that you think about when you don't have to think, and that's who you are, and that's who you should be, because that's what you're passionate about. That's what you care about.
Yeah,
And
for
so that's
sure.
sort of the analogy that I got from my company commander, at that moment, and for him it was um, being a military officer. That's what he cared about, and that's why he took the path that he did and became a legend in the special forces community. At the time when he asked me that, I didn't know how to answer that, so I had to take some time to think about that and reflect and decide what that is.
Yeah, and well, back to the book. Your response, sir. I think that must be one of the most profound questions anyone has ever asked me. And
Yeah,
that what I love about that is reading this and imagining it being in that room as like fourth person, and just thinking to for having you asking those questions as a young, just out of your selection school, just out of a Green Beret school, and coming into your first unit. That probably caught him off guard how open you were about, hey man, I, am here just to be a team member with you. Instead of you kind of being insecure and kind of holding things in and keeping tight, that openness is pretty important. And I'm sure a lot of guys that you served with experienced that and probably made them better as well. That you were that way as their team leader and commanding officer.
I hope so. That's just being authentic. That's just being who I am, I try to be pretty open with all my guys and my commanders and let them know what I'm thinking, not really holding back anything, because really comes down to being a leader, influencing other people to be the best that they can be, right? And then how do you do that? You have to lay a foundation of trust and communication. I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
Sure, for
Are
sure.
we communicating effectively? And I don't want to hold back from you or tell you any half truths or lies. Or I mean, yeah, again, at times, I guess there's times when you need to hold back some information just for the benefit of somebody. Um, they're not quite ready to hear it, or you got to build them up to get to that level. But generally, you know, once you lose trust and communication, it's tough to get it back.
Well, especially in stressful environments like military creates, and post 9/11 combat that a lot of us have experienced.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, every day is different. You can't predict what tomorrow's going to bring.
no question.
All right, real quick, back to the book. I love this. I'm just going to couple of different sentences. Officer leadership is commanding the team, not leading the team. And then next paragraph. Officers don't lead the team; they command the team. And that's what you asked. All right, sir. Excuse me, sir. What did you mean by officers don't lead the team; they command the team? So basically, later he says in that same paragraph, if you ever have to remind your soldiers that you were in charge, you aren't. And when I read that, I was like, where the frick's my highlighter, man? I got a friggin' highlight. I was like, yes, I love that, because I think that's a lesson for so many of us when it comes to accountability of even self, and even at home with our own family too, where if you have to bring this primate energy out of like I'm in charge, okay, you probably lost the whole team, guys. So
There's no doubt.
could you talk about that a little bit on your side as an officer and experience?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, bro. Like that's exactly right. Like how many times have you heard an officer say, "I'm in charge. I'm in command here. You listen to me." Every time I heard that, it's like you're not in charge. You're not in command. You lost the team. And anytime you have to remind somebody of that, then they don't believe you, and you don't believe it yourself. Like there should be no question about who's in charge. Just your body language. Like I prided myself on when we were all like my team was in a location where we're maybe in all civilian clothes, or we had our tops off and we're just wearing like our brown shirts, or tan shirts or whatever. When somebody new came into the room, whether it was an officer or an NCO or a foreign national or whatever, whenever they walked in the room and they kind of scanned the room, like who's the dude here that's in charge? Like I prided myself on them, like always looking at me and be like, no question, that's the dude in charge. You know what I mean? And it just sort of like is a presence that you have to build, your body language, your belief in yourself, the team belief in you, and so forth. And it doesn't matter how tall or short you are, or how in shape you are. It's just a presence. And that's sort of what Major Pettit was kind of telling me about, at that time. And I was like, man, that's profound. Like that's hell yeah. And so I always caught myself. There were times when, there was a heated debate on the team or whatever, guys were getting out of hand. And I always caught myself and I was like, don't you dare, don't you ever say I'm in command. You know what I mean? Like, listen to me. Like I always, I'd tell guys to shut up and, whatever, but I wouldn't be like, hey, I'm in charge. Like, nah, never said that. Not after that meeting with Major Pettit.
All right, all right. This is perfect transition for chapter 3. There's a part you talked in there about I think it was another captain, and you guys were doing mount training. I think it was your first day mount training. It might have been live shoot house, whatever it was. And he basically said after action for you debrief, hey Jason, on the ride back, what do you think? How was today? And you said something that hit me hard too with the job I did as a government contractor civilian teaching combat skills. We had a lot of bitching going on, and it's just natural for an A-type team like that. But I love what you said. Like you called that out because that was your perspective, being you're new. This is all new to you, and your first observation was that. Can you talk about, as a leader, how is there a healthy balance of, I call it pigeon talk or just noise. How is there a healthy balance of not coming in and showing your role as a leader and shutting that up, but also like letting it happen, but not getting too far out of reach where it's hurting the team.
Yeah, that's a great question. The way I look at it is like this, man. Guys are going to talk, man. They're going to talk, um, and it's better for them to talk in front of you than it is for them to talk behind your back. You know, at least when they're talking in front of you, know what's going on, and you can hear their gripes and complaints,
Mm-hmm.
and you can get a better pulse of the team or the organization. Now, when I first got to the special forces unit, it was shocking to me. Like I thought these guys would all be PT studs and like just hard charging, like, just intelligent, like, and I was like, man, these guys complain more than any unit I've ever been to. Like, this is crazy, man. All these guys do is complain 24/7 about one thing or the next. And I was shocked, and then when I had this conversation, um, in the book, we talk about Matt Cheney and I, he's another captain. And after we got done with our mount training, he was like, Jason, what do you think? And I said, hey, I'm just so surprised at how much complaining is going on the team. And he, he sort of laughs and he's like, get used to it, man. That's what SF is all about. I was like, I'm surprised. I'm shocked. And he said, well, listen, when people complain, they're complaining because they care. If they didn't complain or if they didn't say anything, then they wouldn't give a shit. Like they didn't care. They wouldn't care about improving in any way, you know? Um, and I looked at that a little bit differently and I was like, wow, so what we're really saying is like the guys in SF are guys that really, really care about everything. They want everything to be better. They want everything to be improved upon. And that's a good thing. And then he said, pay attention to what they're saying, because if they're just complaining to complain, that's a classic complainer and you need to resolve that, but if they're complaining and then offering a solution, then they're actually a problem solver, and he's like, I caution you to look at it that way and to really pay attention to what the guys are saying, because I can almost promise you that when you hear this complaining, they offer follow through, they offer a solution, and that's being a problem solver. And so I started paying attention to that, and I was like, wow, like he's right, man. These guys just aren't complaining and just pigeon talking and talking noise. They're actually saying, this particular thing sucks, or I don't like doing this, or this doesn't make sense, or I don't like this. Why aren't we doing it this way?
Right.
What if we did it this way? What if we did this? And that's, man, I welcome that. I welcome that. Bring me more of that, guys. Bring me more solutions, because I'm an intelligent guy, but I don't have all the answers. You know what I mean? Like I'm open and I'm listening to you. It's like Major Pettit told me, and the first thing he said to me, I think, was the difference between being a good Green Beret and a great Green Beret is your ability to listen. And so I always listen to my guys, and I was always careful about when guys would say something that's almost like a death toll for a leader is, the captain's not listening to us or the commander's not listening to us. That's bad.
Yeah.
That's, you don't want to get in that situation.
Well, I 100% agree with that. I want to add a little bit to what you mentioned about the complaining part. I also look at it as it also tells you how those guys on your team want to be seen as being part of the team. Where, like you said, if you're not listening to what they're saying, then you're not learning from them, where they're giving you freebies. Where it's
Yeah.
like, so I always tried, and it didn't always work. I don't need to get into this. We had a horrible chief instructor. I was the assistant chief instructor. The chief instructor basically went home at noon every day, and like it was just a disaster. Um, no one respected that, because you got to be there to really be a leader. You can't lead off site. But anyway, I always tried to listen to what they were saying so I could have an idea of, okay, so you're telling me this is how you want to be seen as being part of this team by what you're saying. Instead of them just bitching to bitch, it was, I used their information to say, all right, well, let's grow. Let's grow from this. And when you call guys out on their bitching, it actually becomes productive. Like I said, having that left and right lateral limits before we were recording, we talked about it. It's got to just have that balance like anything else. And it's got to have parameters set where if it's out of hand, it's like, if my wife lets me take care of my kids and she's, out for a little while, she can guarantee the house is going to be a hot mess. There's no, there's no parameters. It's daddy time.
Yeah, that's
um,
great, man.
but I love that part in the book, that how you you brought up that, and then it was a way to learn as well. I was like, wow, I'm learning myself about where bitching was fair, and it
Yeah,
made me think about it a little bit more as I speak on it now.
yeah,
Um,
I
and
agree.
I
I was
love
just
one last part I wanted to notice, represent was everything that I created with the company that I started too is it's all about training and readiness and preparedness. And I love how your advice is don't trust your NCOs, but trust but verify. Because
yeah,
trust but verify is the most important thing that teams and organizations can grab and utilize. That's such an easy way to incorporate where, look, I trust you, but if I don't check on you, then I'm failing our team. I'm failing our organization and our mission statement. So could you talk about that? I've heard you put some videos out as well about trust, but don't trust your NCOs. Well, can you talk about trust but verify, and kind of some examples and some reasons why that's important for people in all aspects of life?
yeah. No, that's a hot topic. A lot of people ask me about that, and it gets people fired up because if you don't look at the context, you're just thinking I'm telling you that it's an officer versus NCO thing, and that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, in chapter one, Major Pettit asked me, he's like, "What are your top three leadership lessons?" And the last one I told him was, "Trust your NCOs." And I told him, at West Point, when you just graduate, you're commissioned an officer, you ask everybody that you can find, officers and NCOs alike, "Hey, any advice for me going to lead a platoon for the first time? Being an officer, what do you think?" And everybody says, everybody to a man, like they all say, trust your NCOs, everybody. And it's like, okay, Roger. And then I listened to that, and I did that in my military career. And then when I went and talked to Major Pettit, I told him this, and he was like, how did that work out for you? Or how has that worked out for you? And I had to be honest with him. I said, well, it hasn't worked out that great, to be honest with you. And he said, well, why? And then I told him, there were some examples um, that of of experiences that I've had with NCOs that didn't work out well. And I'll give you a few right now. Like there are guys, so I serve with some of the best NCOs on the planet, like guys that are my best friends right now to this day that are NCOs. And for me, I always like officer, NCO, who cares? If you're a good person, you're a good person. If you can operate and if you can get the job done, then we're going to be best friends,
Sure.
But there are NCOs that in combat, I would trust them with my life, man. There's nobody I'd rather have beside me in a trench fighting. The guy you could count on a million times over. But then when we got back to the rear, when we're back in garrison, I couldn't trust this guy to not beat his wife. I couldn't trust this guy to go out and not get a DUI. I couldn't trust this guy to do those little things. And vice versa. There were guys in the rear that were like, man, this guy, I'll count on him any day to do an inventory for me. I'll count on this guy to get the paperwork filed, to get the job done. But when we went to combat, when we were about to get out of the Humvee and go assault an objective, I looked over at him and he's like, I'm not going anywhere. And I'm like, wow. I'm like, this is the first time I ever heard somebody like Green Beret say, I'm scared. I'm not getting out of the Humvee, And I just told him, watch the Humvee then, because we're going, and there's just plenty of examples like that. And so when you give somebody a blanket statement of trust your NCOs, especially a young officer who doesn't know anything, you're really setting that person up for failure,
Yeah.
because there are certain NCOs that you should trust and there are certain NCOs that you shouldn't trust. There are good NCOs and bad NCOs, just like there are in the special forces. And yes, there are good officers and bad officers as well. And so what we're saying is, when you first start that relationship with somebody, officer, NCO, like, you have to believe in this person. You have to take that uncomfortable leap of faith, um, and just believe. Like, I believe in you, Jake. I believe that you can do this. Now, this is the first step in the process of trust. Let's build this trust by doing actionable trust building activities.
Right.
So, Jake, I need you to do this for me. Okay. You go do something. I verify that you did it to standard. And then I say, okay, well, you've earned another step or another notch on the spectrum of trust. I'm going to give you something bigger to do. And you kind of continue going down that path until at some point, We completely trust each other, and it goes both ways as well. So if I tell you to do something and I'm not doing it myself, then I lose trust in your eyes. This isn't a do as I say, not as I do sort of thing. It's me proving myself to you as a commander. Jake, I told you to do this. I checked up on it. I told you I would do this for you once you completed the task. Did I do this? Yes, I did. Now we're building this trust together. And I think that's what's important. I've talked about this with a few people before, and sometimes I get feedback like, oh, I trust everybody until they prove otherwise. Ah, shit, man, that's a bad way to go about life, man. You don't go to a doctor's office and just say, all right, well, you diagnosed me with cancer. I guess you're right, man. I trust you. Go get a second opinion, man. Like, are you crazy? I go to my mechanic and he says, oh, yeah, man, you need a brand new engine. It's going to cost you $10,000. Okay, here's 10,000 other mechanic and see if this is accurate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This trust but verify, and that's what that message is all about.
Yeah, no, I love it. I completely agree with it, because as we grow and get more experience also under our belt as individuals and team members, if we can reflect and learn on the things that really uh, it came the hardest on us as a team, it had to do with relying on other people. And what it also does is it helps you rely on yourself too, where it's just accountability. That accountability piece, every team needs it, and every team gets better when we hold ourselves accountable and we verify. Because you can't manage everything. There's a lot of trust that needs to be out there, but you can't just assume. So thanks for that part.
Yeah.
Now,
Don't.
now I want to add.
Cool.
I talked about the intro for you. I want to add the impact side. I talked a lot about that with your company,
Mm.
Mission 60, Warrior Rising. Can you take a moment and talk about big picture? What kind of impact do you want to have on your sphere of influence?
When it's all said and done, um, I guess I want to be known in the community as a good dude. And that's something that um, I strive for when I was an officer, meaning that you don't know everybody, and not everybody knows you. But from time to time somebody's going to ask about you, whether it's a commander that wants to promote you or put you in a position of power, or just an NCO that wants to know what kind of captain is coming to the team. When somebody asks, hey, do you know Jake? Oh, yeah, Jake, he's a good dude. Okay, that's all you need, man, is that stamp of approval. And so I always strive to be a guy that got that good dude stamp of approval, from my people, from my community. Now, making an impact for other people, it's changed throughout my life. Now that I'm married and I have kids, for me, it's like I know that I'm not going to be around forever, and I want to prepare my kids. I want to have a tremendous impact on them, on their lives. I want to prepare them to be successful and happy in life, and to add value and impact other people. You know, so for me right now, number one is how am I positively impacting my kids? You know, and and then in the community with Mission 60 and Warrior Rising, I find it incredibly soul enriching to help veterans. That's my community. I know them. I know what they're all about. I know what they've been through, and I know their shortcomings, and I also know when they're BSing. You know what I mean? And I bring them in and help them help themselves. I don't like to just give you a handout and say, here's some money, good luck, or hey, I'm going to take you fishing. Now that we went fishing, go back home. Did your life change? No. You know what I mean? I'm helping you help yourself at Warrior Rising through business ownership. So if you have a desire and inclination to start a business, I'm going to help you do that. I'm going to give you all the tools, the equipment necessary to do that. Even I'm going to give you some financial assistance. If you've proven yourself, but it comes down to earning it, proving yourself, just like in life, man. It's just a life lesson. And then at Mission 60, I want to impact people to be better leaders. It's, firsthand, Jake, there are no bad teams, there are only bad leaders.
Sure.
And if you can create leadership, true leadership, commandership, forging commanders, that's what it's all about. Um, in my eyes, to take something um, and multiply it by 10, to
Yeah,
10x that thing.
for sure. Well, now that we're on that topic, so perfect transition to leadership and your impact, real quick. Your impact is very clear. So people open source, look you up, find out what you're doing, see the content that you're putting out. It's very clear that your impact is direct on what you want to do. And you know, I just, like I said, I really respect what you're doing out there, because you're very vulnerable, and the vulnerability that you are is a confident vulnerability that a lot of people, if they started doing that, they would see a huge shift in growth for their life. So
Oh, bro, put that on speakerphone. Exactly what you just said is perfect. For years, I didn't want to market myself. I didn't want to, I don't want to do social media. I don't want to put myself out there. I don't want to do any of that stuff. It was uncomfortable, and I finally took my own medicine and got comfortable with the discomfort, and I put myself out there about a year and a half ago. And I always wanted to say, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. Meaning I'm going to be myself. And I'm not going to apologize for it.
yeah,
Um, and I'm also not going to be a guy that's going to try to make enemies. I want to be a master of de-escalation, meaning somebody comes at me hard, or talks some trash or wants to pick a fight or whatever. I always think to myself, okay, my goal is to make this dude my best friend.
yeah,
And somehow we're going to have, he's going to have a beer. I'm going to have a Diet Coke or whatever together at some point in the future and hang out,
yeah.
and that's how I look at it.
Man, you got to talk. So my the fourth guest I had on my podcast is Chase Hughes. He was one of the top CEOs of 2020, and the magazine that just came out. And one of the things he talks about is social skills. Like oftentimes, big companies they have these people with great social skills, but they always think they need to go find back to the tactic rule book of, we have this problem, we need to find this solution, but they forget about the social skill solution, like you just mentioned, because that's how I am. I'm all about and you could probably ask almost everybody that knows me. I'm all about finding common denominators with people,
Love it.
because that's how you grow. That's how you build a team, and that's how you help your terminal objective. Because my big overhead question to everybody I meet is, what outcome do you want? It's our choice. So leadership, I will say this again about my fourth guest, Chase Hughes. He talked about leadership. His favorite book on leadership was Caesar Milan, The Dog Whisperer. And
Oh yeah.
there's one quote in there that stood out so much, which said, humans are the only mammal that will follow an unstable leader.
Wow. That's pretty cool. You learn a lot about dogs, man. Learn about leadership through dogs and about life.
Right.
I love dogs, man. Growing up, I had a lot of them, but my wife doesn't like them, so we don't have any in my house right now.
I got 4. You can have one of ours. I heard you run a lot, right, with your kids in the stroller and things.
Oh, dude, I used to run. It's cold now, and not cold for me, but it's cold for my kids. I took them running a couple of times out when it was cold, and my daughter was pretty cool with it, but my son just bawled, cried the whole time, and I was like, "This is child abuse. I gotta take him back, man. He's not a cold weather kid." And so I just go run on my own now. And
Nice.
yeah.
Well, so I bring that up because we got rescue dogs. One of them's like a cat. She doesn't go outside much. I got 3 big dogs, 1 little one, but I take them running, and I'll take my stroller out with me with my 3-year-old, and my 7-year-old will be on the bike, and people will stop me and be like, you're such an inspiration. And I'm like, you don't understand. I'm like balancing life right now. I'm trying to get my workout, man, get my kids on recess, and get my dogs outside.
That's right.
Anyway, but I heard you talk about you do a lot of that, a lot of running, and you take your kids out in the stroller and then go to the park, let them play, then get back to your run. So
Oh, it's awesome. It's perfect. And we're doing that with our challenge right now. Although it's cold, I do it by myself, but when it gets warm again, I'll bring them back out. But um, for every day for 60 days, we'd go and do some cardio. And I take the kids out, do this run, stop at a park, let them go play, hang out with them, push them on the swings. At some point they're sort of ready to go, and then I'll just run back. It's an hour workout for me, and lost a ton of weight. I saw my time is getting faster and faster and faster the more weight I lost, and I was like, man, this is awesome. My wife gets a chance to just hang out and not be bothered by me and the kids at home. The kids get a chance to hang out with daddy and go to the playground, and daddy gets to have cardio. It's like everybody's winning, man.
yeah, it's great, man. I'm saying with little kids, like if you want to get it in, that's what you got to do. You just got to
Yeah.
find that time, get in the stroller, get on your bike, let's go. All right, so look, I was on leadership. Let me ask you about leadership. If you could choose one word, what would your one liner be? Your favorite characteristic, term, trait, tactic of leadership? What would it be?
That's a great one, man. That's a great one. I'll tell you, I'm thinking about this. So we talk a lot about values in our company, and I ask everybody that joins my team, what are your values? What are your top three values? And I treat them according to the values that they articulate to me. And um, for me, my top three values are determination, resourcefulness, and loyalty. So people that are determined, resourceful, and loyal, like we're best friends. Like we resonate big time. We're on the same page, big time. And if you were to ask me, pick one of those words, um, I would say resourcefulness. I would say being resourceful, figuring it out. Like the last stanza of the Ranger Creed, readily will I display the intestinal fortitude required to fight on to the Ranger objective and complete the mission. Do I be the lone survivor? I love that, man. It gets me emotional hearing this, from time to time. But that's what I love. Like no matter what is in front of you, obstacle, situation, cards you've been dealt in life, like you figure a way out to get it done. I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah, I love that too. I think, I mean, creativity is a perfect word kind of for that too.
Oh yeah.
And that's part of the thing I teach. Like, so I do some leadership development training. We talk about the pack mentality. So for teams, you need purpose. You also need ambition. And then the C, I have a struggle with the C because I like composure and I also like creativity. So I use both of those for the C, and then K for the knowledge, because without knowledge, we really don't grow. But man, I love that creed. And my uncle, he just passed away this year. He's a Green Beret in Vietnam.
Sorry to
And
hear, man.
yeah, man, thanks. He's, his life, he was a Green Beret medic. But yeah, definitely the creed was his way of life, man. He lived it. And I definitely have heard that before.
I love creativity too, man. That's a great. I think when you really think about it, what sets leaders apart, especially in the military, is your ability to be creative. To
Right.
think differently. About something, to be unconventional,
Right.
problem solve. I think that all comes down to creativity. That's a good one. I'd use that one. Not to say composure isn't a good one, but I like creativity. That's a good one. That's a better one, I
Yeah.
think.
All right. Thanks. And so I don't know. You talked about you might have to jump off. You got to go. Did you
I
get
can
it?
go for another five.
All right. You got an
Five.
extension. All right. So, all right. So before we kick, I do want to talk about your one thing that we both grew up LDS.
Yeah.
Um, I'm my sister went on a mission like you did. I didn't go on a mission. My sister did, and around the same time, I do want to support our LDS friends out there and talk to them about, give them a message about what it was like for you as a young man. So you had your scholarship at West Point, you played football, and then at 19 years old, you went to language school, probably around the same time my sister did in 96 or 97,
I'm
whenever.
sure it's crazy. We're probably there at the same time.
And so you went there. Can you just tell me what it was like? So you're in school, you're in West Point, like a tough school. You're on a football team that's not doing well your first couple seasons. What was it like to just remove yourself from that environment to then go do something way bigger than yourself for the spiritual perspective of life?
Yeah. At the time, um, college was sort of a whirlwind for me. It feels like I was prepared. I was ready to go. And the first day of college, I walked in, I got punched in the face. And I was sort of surviving, trying to figure out how to survive. And I thought to myself that going on a mission would be a great way for me to like take a step back and get my bearings and reattack it in a more productive, successful way. And then I thought about the good that I would be doing by going on a mission. It's something that I always in my mind I always was going to do. And I didn't have many missionary sort of mentors or role models. Like my parents didn't grow up LDS. I was the oldest in my family. Living in Virginia, there wasn't like a huge Mormon community where we
Right.
grew up, and so I just thought it would be really fun and interesting and cool and something I wanted to do with my life. And so I got the call, and when you get the call, it means that you receive some paperwork in the mail, and it says, Jason Van Camp, you've been called to serve in the X mission. For me, it was the St. Petersburg, Russia mission. And I was just like, wow, like I'm going to Mother Russia. You know what I mean? Like when
Soviet Russia.
I grew up in Virginia, right outside DC, man, it was pretty clear to us that there were two enemies, growing up, in the 80s. Like
Yeah.
number one was the Dallas Cowboys. That was number one, enemy number one. Number two was the Russians. And that's just how it was, man. So I
Oh,
was
that's funny.
in enemy territory. And so I went to the MTC Missionary Training Center in Provo, Utah. First time I ever been to Utah. Loved it. Thought it was a really cool, state and everything. We didn't get a chance to go out much or explore, but we went through language training, and I didn't know 3 or 4 words. When I first started, I had no idea what was going on, and I had a great time with the missionaries in my group, my Russia group, and we kind of, I don't know if we took it super seriously. We probably should have, but we just had a good time and we tried our best to learn. And then I went to Russia, and that was really officially the first time I've ever been outside the United States. And it was mind blowing, when you're a teenager going to Russia and seeing how different it is. And then now you're having to learn this language where you thought you kind of understood a little bit at the training center, but now you're actually in the country, and even like, you know, da and yet, like yes and no. Even when the Russians say it, it doesn't sound like what your instructors taught you. So you're just like, man, I'm starting over from ground zero. I have no idea what's going on. And then going out and like actually having to put yourself out there, to market yourself, to talk to people on the street, strangers. Excuse me, may I talk to you for a moment? And knocking on doors, random strangers' doors, getting rejected, getting threatened, getting thrown in jail cells by the police. Having to negotiate yourself out of a situation with the mafia. You know what I mean? Like all those things as a teenager, I was dealt with, and I gained experience. And I thought to myself, if I can do this, later in life, when those situations presented itself, it was like, oh, I've already done this. I know what to do. And I not only did this, but I did this in a foreign friggin' language. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so it was a great experience, a great time. Love the Russian people. Um, I don't know if I'd ever go back there because I feel like, I heard that story about a Marine who was on vacation there and he got thrown in prison for no apparent reason other than they suspected him of being a spy. And so I'm like, man, I don't want to risk that. I don't want to go get thrown in jail for the rest of my life because they think I'm a spy with with absolutely no proof whatsoever. So I'm a
Yeah.
little bit nervous about doing that. But it was awesome, man. I loved every second of it.
That's so cool. So one question I have is, when you were there, what helped you prepare for when you were going to come back to? Because not all missionaries know what they're coming back to, like especially now where they go right out of high school. So, but
Yeah.
when you were there, like how were you able to keep your mindset focused? Because you were coming back to some heavy stuff still, like going back to West Point, I'm sure back to the football team, and then
Yeah.
preparing for your commission. So, how at what point were you like? Did you get that growth or that vision perspective of, oh man, I can't forget what I'm going back to?
Man, I sort of put that way in the back of my mind for about a year and a half. And it's a 2-year mission. And then 6 months left, started to like get serious and become a reality. It's like, oh man, like I got to go back. Like, what am I going to do when I go back? This thing is almost over. I never questioned whether or not I should go back to West Point. I always felt like I would go back there and I had unfinished business. I had friends that had gone to West Point or the Naval Academy that decided to go to another college. I think most of them decided to go to BYU after their mission. So they went to West Point for the first 2 years or Naval Academy or Air Force Academy or whatever, and then decided, you know what, I'm going to go be a normal civilian and go that route when I get back home. I never thought about that. I don't know why I didn't. I probably should have thought more about that, but I just thought, I had that mission focus, meaning like I was like, I'm going to go back to West Point. I'm going to finish it up there. I'm going to play football. I'm going to be a starter on the team. We're going to win. I'm going to have a great time. And going back to West Point, it wasn't like that at all, man. It wasn't a great time. We were on a football team. We were having rough seasons. When I got back my senior year, we were like 1-10 or something like that. So we had a really hard season my senior year. And then it was weird to see all my buddies that I was a freshman, grew up with, freshmen and sophomores at West Point. I was coming back as a sophomore, and these guys were seniors getting ready to graduate.
Yeah.
And that was a weird. It was fun, but it was a weird kind of experience.
Yeah, it makes sense. It probably felt like you just went on pause for a while, and they didn't. They kept growing.
Yeah, they matured a lot. They kept growing, and I was after I got back, it was weird because I was always out of place. Like I wasn't really a part of the class of 2001. The class I graduated with, and I wasn't really a part of the class of '99, the
Yeah, that
class I
makes sense.
started with. So it was
That makes
kind of an
perfect sense.
outlier, man. It was weird, and it wasn't cool, but it was fine. I'm not complaining about it.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I mean, the other thing to add though too is while you're on that mission, that downtime probably was so critical to what, not even just what you did then, but even what you've done now. Because on a mission, you learn cold call sales skills.
Oh,
You,
dude.
you learn how
Yeah.
to talk to anybody. Now you're talking to them in a different language. You learn how to respect people outside of verbal and more just body language and just the human behavior. Um, I mean, so many skills that you probably consciously and even subconsciously learned for life.
Bro, you have no idea. And it's not just me. I think it's all Mormons that go on a mission because they get hired, they get selected in the military for special mission sets, and the FBI and the CIA recruit Mormons that have these skills. And you look at businesses, Utah's blowing my mind with how many successful businesses are out here. It's because these guys at a very young age knew the importance of sales
Yeah,
and marketing and putting
communication.
yourself out there and being fearless when it comes to that. And it's crazy to think that you learn all that at such a young, impressionable age.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, my sister went to France and she had her own company. Now she's a big marketer. So I agree, man. It definitely creates that mindset.
Yeah, no, for
So,
sure, man. It was fun. I loved
yeah,
it. If anybody out there's questioning whether or not they should go, I don't know if I should or I shouldn't. I'm saying go. I had a great experience. I can't guarantee you a great experience, but I had a great one. And if you're contemplating whether or not to go, go for it.
right. And some things I didn't go on one, but one thing to add about experience in life. Sometimes the live moment sucks, but when you look back later after it's passed and you reflect on it, sometimes it was the best thing you needed.
Dude, absolutely applaud you 1,000 times over for that, man. You remember the tough times in life. You know what I mean? Like you remember the hard times. And when you look back on it, it kind of, you remember them fondly, you
Right.
know?
Yeah, I call it the one percenters. It's like
Yeah.
the tattoo on the brain, the all right. So last question before you boogie, because I know you're a busy guy. You talked about it a little bit with impact, but
Yeah.
we lost a lot of brothers in post 9/11 combat.
Yeah.
1.3 million Americans have died for our country, and a lot of those died were young. And one reason I came up with the last L for legacy for that pill is a lot of my brothers that died young, I don't know how to tell their story, because I don't know enough about them. So one thing that I challenge others to do is make sure we leave a story and a memory for others to tell about us. And my question is to you: what legacy do you want to leave, and also how do you want to be known for what impact you've done?
Oh man, that's a great question because I think to myself, um, with different pockets of people, with my buddies, my military buddies, I don't want them thinking of me necessarily as like um, this great philanthropist. I want them to think of me as a dude that we shared a lot of laughs with. and had crazy stories, and we broke some rules and we were stupid and we had fun, and I had their back. With my family, I don't want them to think of me like that. I want them to think of me like he was, basically, I think with this, my family, I want them to think, um, dad loved me. He loved me, and I know he loved me, and he would do anything for me. That's what I want my kids to remember about me. Um, let's see. The guys that help at Warrior Rising, I think those guys, I want them to think of me like, Jason went out of his way to help me succeed, and like, um, he gave me everything that I needed to win. For Mission 60, I would say like sort of similar, like Jason provided me the tools I needed to help myself. He didn't do this for me. He was here to help me be better than I was. And the guys on my team, I guess, and the guys I served with, for them, I would say I want them to think about me and be like, oh yeah, Van Camp. Yeah, he was a good dude. He was a good leader, man. I really liked him. We had a good time. I trusted him. I think that's what I want them to say.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I mean, what it sounds like too is you want to inject energy into others, and
Yeah.
you're doing that, man. And especially if they think it when they think of you, you want that energy to kind of come to light, like facial expressions and smile and like love, camaraderie.
Yeah.
And man, I'm telling you, stay at it because you are on that path. I mean, just you're incredible, man. The stuff you're doing.
Man, too
And
kind.
the last thing I'm gonna say is Sergeant Major Kent, the 16th Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps, is gonna be my next guest.
It's gonna be an awesome show, man. No doubt.
What question? I'm asking you. What question do you have for him that I can ask?
Oh, this is a good one. Sergeant Major, what's your biggest regret as a leader?
I love it.
That's a
I
good
love
one.
it. I love it. I will definitely ask him that. He's a great man. I don't know if he knows John. He did a video for John Maskell
Oh, okay.
a while back. Had like over 100,000 views.
Oh my
But
gosh. Fantastic.
I got them connected back in like summertime. But I'll make sure I ask him that. And Jason, I just want to tell you, man, hey, I salute everything you're doing. Your book is incredible because it's smooth, man. Your book's so smooth and it includes people. It's not just about you. It's
Yeah.
kind of everything that you're living that I see as well. Your book, how it includes the team, and it's shoulder to shoulder. It's not about anybody one. It's not about any one individual. It's about
Yeah.
shoulder to shoulder work because that's how the mission gets done. So, thanks, brother. I know you got a boogie, man, and happy New Year.
Happy
And
New Year to you as well. It's an honor to be on your show. I had a lot of fun.
yeah, thanks, man.
Appreciate you, brother. Salute you back.
Yeah, thanks,
No
brother.
doubt.
All right,
Okay.
later. I'm out.
Hey, bro.